Strange Studies of Strange Stories.
A soldier served God and the great Tsar for 25 years, earned 3 dry biscuits, and set off to walk his way home. He kissed his companions with whom he had served so long, and boasted of the feasting there would be in his village when he should come marching home with all his wars behind him. Singing at the top of his voice he was as he set off, but as soon as he was alone on the high road, walking through the forest, he began to think things over, and he thought to himself, all these years I've served the Tsar and had good clothes to my back and my belly full of victuals, and now I am likely to be both hungry and cold. Already I've nothing but 3 dry biscuits. Just then he met an old beggar who stood in the road and crossed himself and asked alms for the love of God. The soldier had not a copper piece in the world, so he gave the beggar one of his 3 dry biscuits.
One of 3? A third of his wealth to a stranger? This sure feels like some kind of, folk or fairy tale?
The generosity certainly makes this feel fictional, yes. It also makes me worry about you that you just called 3 dry biscuits wealth. Are you broadcasting from the outside of a restaurant window again, looking in longingly while people eat dinner?
Look, all I'm going to say is that this Pizza Hut has free Wi-Fi.
Score! You got some amenities.
Yeah.
I think that's what they call Peeping Plus. Well, here at Strange Studies of Strange Stories, we're about to give you 1/3 of our stories for the month for free. I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
And I'm Chris Lackey. It's December. And that means we are plumbing the tales of yore to give you that strange feeling.
It is a month of fairy tale magic. We've covered folk tales throughout the life of the show, but started doing this dedicated month in 2023. I actually look forward to it all year long.
Me too.
We've done Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, and then reached out a little further past those more popular Central European tales to cover Tygo Cain and the Corpse from Ireland, which I'm still telling people about, and the Russian folktale Vasilisa the Fair with all its creepy Baba Yaga-tude. Baba Yaga, by the way, lives in a house supported by giant chicken legs, and I bet she got them from the mysterious island.
Oh, wow.
Where giant terror birds run free to attack go-go girls.
They do.
If you listen to our extra credit episode from last week, you will know what I'm talking about. Speaking of which, this is our free episode for Fairy Tale Month. If you want to hear more, please subscribe on Patreon. Even if you don't want to hear more, do it for the love of the game. This month, we're also going to be talking about an Indian fairy tale called Sir Buzz, which has some vampires in it. I'm not going to lie to you about that. Expect scary vampires this month. And then we're going to tackle Beauty and the Beast, both the story and then the Cocteau film version in our extra credit.
Right.
We'll also probably talk about the Disney version, which people are familiar with because that's the one where Angela Lansbury plays a sexy teapot.
Oh, yeah, she does. Today we're going to talk about another Russian folktale. This story is called The Soldier and Death.
Well, that was a spellbinding opening reading. Who is this week's spellbinder?
That spellbinder is Rachel Lackey.
Yes.
You can hear her talk about Star Trek on her podcast, Rachel Watches Star Trek. We're talking Deep Space Nine, Season 2 right now, and I think Deep Space Nine might be some of the best Trek.
Creep Space Nine is what you call your peeping spot outside the Pizza Hut.
I do.
Rachel knows all about it because she had to pick you up from the first 8 spaces when you got caught. So thank you, Rachel, for that and for the excellent reading. I'm always happy when she does the show, genuinely, and please, folks, tune in to Rachel Watches Star Trek.
The Soldier in Death is an old Russian story. The oldest version I could find is from the book Russian Popular Religious Legends.
That's a collection from the Russian ethnographer Alexander Afanasyev, who was active in the mid-1800s.
As I'm sure you all remember, Afanasyev was Russia's version of the Brothers Grimm. He went around collecting and recording Slavic folk and fairy tales that were originally just orally told. In the original Russian, there are 3 versions of this tale, but in the Leonard Arthur Magnus translation, he combines them into one version. We've chosen the Arthur Ransom translation because, well, we just liked it better.
Yes, Arthur Ransom. That's what we've linked to in the show notes. It's the most straightforward telling of the story, and I believe it's from 1920. Although I do have to say, the author that really brought this story to life for me was screenwriter Anthony Minghella. He's a pretty famous director, known for Truly, Madly, Deeply, The English Patient, the excellent Patricia Highsmith adaptation, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Right.
But before all of that, he wrote an adaptation of The Soldier in Death for television And I believe that's what led you to suggest this one.
Yeah, I was digging around for folktales and fairy tales for us to cover, and that name popped up, and it brought me back. It zinged me back to the yesteryear of a teenage Christopher Lackey when it was adapted by Jim Henson for his anthology series, The Storyteller.
It was episode 7 of the series, and there's actually a very good quality version of it available on YouTube. So we will link out, and I recommend that people watch it. It's definitely my favorite version of the text, and I read a few versions.
It is. It kind of takes all the best bits and adds some extra stuff that makes it an even better story. I'm blown away by it. And I just watched it with Rachel and Finney, and they were both delighted by it because it is just very visually stunning and magically told, and I can see why teenage Chris Lackey fell in love with it. It also, like I said, stays really close to the story, and the embellishments that it gives enhance it.
We watched it last night, Heather and I, and it was delightful. I agree. I hadn't seen it before. I roped her in last minute. She's a huge Henson fan, Muppets fan, but never really watched this show.
Oh.
Even though the devils in the story are in the thumbnail for the episode, neither of us really clocked them. So when those creatures appeared about 7 minutes in, oh man, the room went nuts. Heather was audibly enchanted. She goes, It's just such an entertaining half hour. I recommend it to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
The best overall version, I'm going to say, goes to Minghella. And Jim Henson himself actually directed the episode.
He did. There are lots of Russian versions of the story, but also international variations, and we'll talk about those at the end. But let's get into the story.
You can't stop me. Let's do it.
At the beginning of our tale, a soldier retires after serving the Tsar for 25 years and heads back home. All he has to show for it are 3 biscuits.
So in other words, a typical veteran. He's given body and soul to the country, has very little to show for it at the end.
He's feeling down about this, but not bitter.
I think the place the soldier starts is important to the overall themes of the story. He's in poor circumstances, really through no fault of his own. You know, he's worked hard, he's done what's expected of him, and he expected to be taken care of because while he was a soldier, he was taken care of. But after it's all over, he hasn't wound up with much. And I think that's going to be relatable to the listener of the tale, whether they're a veteran or not.
Yeah.
But also it puts the character in fellowship with others who aren't fortunate. His experience changes his lens on the world. You know, if he'd worked hard and done what's expected of him and then wound up wealthy, that experience might make him see those less fortunate as lazy because of what happened to him. But because the soldier has been ill-used, he can see others who aren't doing well and say, you know what, they might have just been done in by ill fortune, so they need some help.
He runs into a beggar on the road who asks him for help, and the soldier gives him one of his biscuits.
As we said at the top, extremely generous.
He then meets another beggar on the road, and he gives him his second biscuit.
In the Storyteller, Jim Henson version, he does get something in return for these generosities, though he doesn't know he's going to when he gives the biscuits away. From the first beggar, he gains the ability to whistle really well. And from the second beggar, he gets the ability to dance. Prior to those interactions, he couldn't do either. I think that demonstrates the fellowship one gains from being generous, even with meager possessions.
Right.
He could have kept his biscuits, but he would miss out on the joys of singing and dancing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the wealthiest person in the world, as of this recording, is Elon Musk. I had a really good chuckle at what Joyce Carol Oates wrote about him on his app that he owns.
Yes.
She wrote, "So curious that such a wealthy man never posts anything that indicates that he enjoys or is even aware of what virtually everyone appreciates. Scenes from nature, pet dog or cat, praise for a movie, music, a book, but doubt that he reads. Pride in a friend's or relative's accomplishment, condolences for someone who has died, pleasure in sports, acclaim for a favorite team, references to history. In fact, he seems totally uneducated, uncultured. The poorest persons may have access to more beauty and meaning in life than the most wealthy person in the world." This message, I think, is embedded in those first 2 encounters with the beggars, at least in the Minghella telling.
Man, he really brought it down. In the Jim Henson version, this whistle that he has, they call it the Ruby whistle because he whistles so good. He's like Andrew Lehman level whistler.
Oh, yeah. Weirdly, they say that in the Henson version. In return for this biscuit, you will get Lehman-level whistling powers. I was like, whoa.
Finally, the soldier encounters a third beggar whom he thinks of splitting the last biscuit with, but then he goes, you know, that's not fair to give him half when I give the other beggars a whole biscuit. So he gives him his whole last biscuit.
Fairness is important to this guy, maybe because the world hasn't been fair to him.
In one version of the story, which I loved, the the last beggar throws off his robes and reveals himself to be Jesus Christ, which made me laugh pretty hard.
Me too. You didn't spoil that one for me. I didn't see it coming when I read that version. It was out of nowhere.
In this version of the story, he's just a beggar, but he's got cool stuff. The last beggar is so impressed with the soldier's generosity that he says, I will give you anything I can. What would you like? And the soldier's like, well, I like cards. It'd be nice to have a pack of cards to play with. And he goes, you know what? I got a pack of cards here, but they're magical. If you play anybody with them, you will never lose. And then the beggar also gives him a magic sack, and he tells him, any creature you tell to get in the sack will do so and will only be freed when you will it. And the soldier thanks him and goes on his way.
It's pretty powerful stuff he gives him. You and I were debating which version of this to use, and the one we ended up on, the Handsome version that we're reading from, it was superior in almost every way to the other version. But the other version had Jesus with his magic pack of cards that he gives to people. And it was hard to choose just because of that. And it made me think, too, I know that people are less religious than they used to be. The church keeps losing customers.
Yeah.
They might want to consider running some promotions like this, where there's a secret Jesus somewhere around town. Maybe a bunch of them in different regions. And then if people are kind to them, boom, Jesus reveals himself, gives them a prize. Maybe it's a Pizza Hut gift card, which is a magic card.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Maybe it's just a visor that says Jesus on it. I mean, the fact that it's a gift is good enough.
I just love the whole idea that Jesus is now into wearing disguises. It's great. Now, after these interactions, the soldier comes to a lake, finds some geese, and he tells them to get in the bag. And they do. He takes the geese to an inn and trades them for room and board.
He brings it to an innkeeper and says, cook one of these for me. You get to keep the other two, which is a really good deal. So he gets lodging, he gets his meal, he gets a full bottle of vodka.
While gazing out the window, the soldier sees that there's a palace nearby, but it is abandoned. He asks the innkeeper, who explains that the palace has been overrun by devils.
Yeah, this is actually a palace that was built by the Tsar, but the Tsar can't enjoy it because these supernatural pests are in there screwing everything up.
The devils go in every night, raise hell, and play cards. Play cards, you say?
The innkeeper says, there's no living in the palace for decent folk. Made me laugh to begin with because I'm like, that's always the case. There's not a lot of folk. It's never like, where do those folk live? Oh, up in the palace. That's never been said.
No.
The soldier asks, does anybody clear them out? Easier said than done, says the landlord. Well, with that, the soldier wishes good health to the landlord and sets off to see the Tsar. Now, he doesn't go directly to the palace.
No.
Here we have a decision from the soldier that could be perceived as generous or benevolent because he's like, well, I have something that might solve this.
Yeah.
But it's also certainly going to bring him a great amount of profit. And that's why he's going to see the Tsar. I was surprised in this moment by the amount of access the soldier has. He kind of just wanders up. I don't even know if he knocks on the door. He just comes in. He goes, hey, Tsar, you in here?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I also wonder, because he's very kind to the Tsar, even though the Tsar ripped him off, it was important, obviously, that you've got to do what your king says. You have to be a good subject.
Right.
The soldier goes to the Tsar and says that he can get those devils out, but the Tsar warns him that everybody that has tried has been killed. The soldier says that he knows what he's doing, and the Tsar gives him his blessing.
Spend the night there if you've set your heart on it, the Tsar says. So the soldier goes to the palace, walks around singing through all the empty rooms, makes himself comfortable in the biggest room of all, lays his knapsack in the corner, hangs his sword on a nail, sits down at the table, takes out a bag of tobacco, fills his pipe, and sits there smoking, ready for what might come.
12 o'clock sharp, and there was a yelling, a shouting, a blowing of horns, a scraping of fiddles, and every other kind of instrument. A noise of dancing, of running, of stamping, and the palace crammed full of devils, making themselves at home as if the place belonged to them.
And you, soldier?
Cried the devils.
What are you sitting there so glum for, smoking your pipe? There's smoke enough where we have been. Put your pipe in your pocket and play a round of cards with us.
Right you are, says the soldier, if you'll play with my cards.
And this is the scene that hooked me in the Jim Henson version. They are these small, blood-red winged devils. It's a funny scene to boot.
Yeah, they have a lot of character. They're almost like the Gremlins in those movies.
Yes.
They're so cool. Just like the Harryhausen movie last month, or when we covered the Vordelak with its vampire marionette, I so prefer to see physical objects on film.
Yeah.
Even if they can't reach the level of realism we get from CGI, the fact that they're there, it just makes them feel more alive to me, especially in a fantasy setting. The devils have somewhat limited expressions, but the voice acting's great. And within their limited expressions, they're so expressive, which is Henson's particular genius. He can make a sock puppet make you cry. You know, that's what he can do. And I loved them so much.
The devils find gold and silver in the palace, 60 bushels worth, and wager that. The soldier beats the pants off of them. And in the Jim Henson version, one of the devils goes, "Is he cheating?" And the other says, "Well, I'm cheating and I'm still losing." I love it. The devils, angry that he won, double-cross him and decide to eat the soldier. But before they can, he tells them to get in the sack. And they do.
Yes.
The soldier spends a peaceful night in the palace with the devils trapped in the bag. In the morning, the Tsar's men come to find out what happened, and the soldier explains and shows them all the gold and silver that he found, but tells them to fetch the Tsar's blacksmith. The blacksmiths show up with some hammers, and they just beat the out of the bag, and the devils beg for mercy.
After they've had the snot beaten out of them in the bag, the devils, the soldier says, "I'll let you go."
If they swear to never return to the palace or the kingdom, and the devils agree. He lets them go, save for one, whom he makes sign a contract saying that he will serve the soldier faithfully.
In the Henson version, he grabs that one by the leg and pulls his little hooved foot off. It's awesome.
The Tsar is so pleased that he invites the soldier to live with him in the palace as a brother and allows him to keep all the money that he won from the devils.
A big payoff for this act of generosity.
The soldier marries, has a son, and all is great for a while.
Until his son gets sick. And this, of course, happens for no reason at all. Illness isn't something that has a morality to it. And it's not something you can put in a sack. It's not something you can fight in any other physical way.
Yeah. Nobody can help the boy, but the soldier remembers his devil and calls him to service.
The devil that he compelled to serve him shows up and is going to help him cure the boy.
The devil takes a glass out of his pocket and fills it with water. He shows the soldier that looking through the glass, you can see death. And death is a woman in this Russian folktale. And I think in most Russian folktales, death is a woman. If death is at the foot of the bed, the person can be saved by sprinkling water from that glass on their head. But if death is at the head of the bed, it's too late. It turns out death is at the foot of the soldier's son's bed, so he can be saved. Yay!
Sprinkles a little water on the kid, and the kid is suddenly better. The soldier says to the devil, "Look, if you give me that glass, I will release you from our deal." And the devil thinks that's a square deal, so he agrees. So the soldier has acquired yet another magical item.
Yes. Using this glass, the soldier now gets gigs as a wise man and drives all the doctors out of business.
If somebody falls ill, he comes over with the glass, and if he sees death at the foot of the bed through it, then it's not their time, and he can cure them instantly by splashing the water on them. And if death is at the head of the bed and it's too late, people don't really blame him for it.
No.
And he gets paid regardless. It's not said explicitly, but I think this demonstrates that the people do accept that death is a part of life and will come regardless of what we do. That's the natural order of things.
Yeah. His time as a wise man gives the soldier an even higher reputation. That is, until the Tsar falls ill. And when the soldier looks at the Tsar through the glass, he can see that death is at the head of the bed, and there's nothing he can do. The Tsar gets pissed, saying, "You can help all these other people, and you can't help me? I treated you like a brother, and since I don't have long to live, I'm going to give the order to have you beheaded." It's like, damn, turns fast. The soldier decides to ask death to take him instead of the Tsar because he's going to die anyway, and he figures why not die without the indignation of being beheaded by the Tsar. And death agrees. He heals the Tsar, who changes his tune real fast.
Yeah.
He says, "Now let's go party that I'm better." The soldier says, "I had to trade my life for yours, and I only have an hour to say goodbye to my wife and son."
So 15 minutes of partying, okay? And then I got to get to my wife and kid. Now, real quick, he's not threatened by the Tsar in every version.
No.
That threat takes some of the agency out of his decision-making. In the Henson version, I don't think there is that threat.
No.
He makes the choice more because he feels indebted to the Tsar.
Yeah.
And maybe we see, his fatal flaw is his generosity. Because it's just the Tsar's time.
Yeah.
But he thinks, no, he should have life and not me. I think that's cool because then you see how the same quality can have both good and bad effects. You have to be discerning about whom you're generous to.
Yeah.
Also, I was talking about his fellowship earlier. At this point in the story, he's been rich for a long time, and he's been hobnobbing with the Tsar and the court. And on top of that, he's gained fame as a wise person and become a celebrity. So his fellowship is really now with the wealthy, and we see that as a result of that, he's needlessly giving himself away to them. Regardless, he's traded his life for the Tsar's, so death will now be coming for him.
But when he sees death at the head of his bed, in the glass, he tells her, "Get in the sack." Ha ha!
Yeah, he captured death herself.
He takes the sack into the deep woods and hangs it from a very, very high tree. But this doesn't just stop the soldier from dying. Everyone is immortal.
Yeah, you've got other soldiers out there all day long in war beating the heck out of each other, but nothing's happening. It's just kind of awkward. Nobody's dying.
This immortality, however, doesn't stop people from aging and wanting to die. An old crone begs the soldier to release death so that she and many others can be free to move on.
And the soldier realizes, yeah, that is the natural order of things, so climbs the tree and releases Death from the bag.
He then knows that it's time to go, so he asks Death to take him, but she won't.
Yeah, he should have died earlier, but at this point, either Death is afraid of the bag and so just wants to get out of there, or just wants him to suffer.
She tells him to go to the devils. They might kill you.
He walked on and on over hill and valley and through the deep forest until he came at last to the kingdom of the unclean. There were the walls of hell and the gates of hell, and as he looked, he saw that sentinels were standing at every gate.
Unfortunately, the devils don't want to have anything to do with him because they're terrified of him and his sack. So the soldier has an idea. He tells the prince of the devils that if you give me 250 souls, I'll leave and never return. The prince of the devils agrees. The soldier has a plan to get into heaven. Maybe by bringing all these souls, God will let him in.
I was a little confused about that. So if those souls were in hell, wasn't a decision already made about them?
Yeah, well...
Or does his act of taking them to heaven redeem them in some way? Like they've been punished long enough?
Yeah, well, I mean, purgatory was a big thing. So obviously after you die, it's not settled.
All right, well, he shows up at the pearly gates with all of these hell people. He's brought the party.
Yes. God will take the souls, but since the soldier captured Death and screwed up the natural order of things, he is not welcome in heaven. The soldiers suspected that might be the case, and we end with this.
So the soldier took one of the sinful souls aside and gave that soul his sack and told him, "As soon as you are through the gates of paradise, open the sack and shout out, 'Into the sack, soldier!' You will do this because I brought you here from hell." And the sinful soul promised to do this for the soldier. But when that sinful soul went through the gates into paradise, for very joy, it forgot about the soldier and threw away the sack somewhere in paradise where it may be lying to this day. And so the soldier, after waiting a long time, went slowly back to earth. Death would not take him. There was no place for him in paradise and no place for him in hell. For all I know, he may be living yet.
And that's the end of the story.
I love the Jim Henson version of it because it's the soldier's whistle. You know, the idea that he's out there and maybe you might hear some whistling and that might be the soldier still walking the earth.
In other versions, he just eventually dies.
Yeah.
The Afanasiev version says, "Thus the soldier was left behind and could not find any home in either place. And for long after that, he still had to live and go on living in the white world. And after very many days, he died."
What?
Yeah. This is what I wondered, though. That tracks if everybody still ages. He didn't freeze aging
No.
when he captured Death, right?
That's
so
right.
everybody would still grow old and older and older. I wasn't sure. Because if that's the case, eventually you're just going to turn to dust.
I guess.
So I thought that that's what that meant. But I definitely much preferred, and that's why we used it, this version, where he just might be around somewhere still. Maybe he's over there in Peep Space 10.
Yes.
Looking in at folks eating their Pizza Hut.
Maybe. I absolutely love that story. That's like one of my favorite fairy tales ever.
I didn't know it. I wasn't familiar with it, and I loved it. And I'm so glad that you shared that Jim Henson Storyteller episode with me because it quickly is. I mean, I love the format of that show, that they don't do complete adaptations that John Hurt, some of the work is done by John Hurt just telling the story. And then they use a combination of animation and staged filming. It's just so neat.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember from our other fairy tales, there's this thing called the Arnie Thompson Uther Index, the ATU Index, that sorts all of these folk tales into tale types. And this one falls under tale type 330, commonly known as the Smith and the Devil. And the basic story of that is a smith who makes a pact with a malevolent being. It's usually the devil, could be death or a demon or a genie, sells his soul for some power, then tricks the devil out of his prize. In one version, the smith gains the power to weld any materials, then uses this power to stick the devil to an immovable object, allowing the smith to renege on the bargain. That version was included in earlier Brothers Grimm collections, but then it was eventually knocked out and replaced by one that's a little more advanced and closer to this one. And you read that one as well, I think.
Yeah. There's a very similar story from the Brothers Grimm called Brother Lustig. In that one, the beggar in the beginning turns out to be St. Peter, and they team up and go around and heal people People want to pay for them, but St. Peter refuses, and Brother Lustig starts taking money on the side. And he's kind of a jerk, but despite that, St. Peter gives him this magic knapsack, and anything you wish to be in the sack will go into the sack. Brother Lustig, still a jerk, even though St. Peter gave him this nice thing, so St. Peter ditches him. This whole thing with the devil, that happens, but Brother Lustig gets old, and St. Peter won't let him into heaven. He gives St. Peter the sack as an apology, but St. Peter still won't let him in. But once St. Peter takes that bag inside, he wishes himself into the bag, and he's in heaven. Ha-ha! Zing!
That's cool because instead of welding the devil to... I'm glad that he tricks a heavenly figure. And it's the devil that's always getting tricked, or death.
Yeah.
It's nice to see a saint get tricked, too. You're not keeping me out of heaven.
There's another story that's very similar to this one called Gambling Hansel.
Gambling Hansel, and that's also a Grimm brothers?
Yeah. It's where a gambling addict befriends God and St. Peter. So for some reason, they're like roommates? God and St. Peter and Gambling Hansel they like live together. And I don't understand what that sitcom situation is, but that's what's going on.
Okay.
God and St. Peter give him a deck of cards and dice that he won't lose with, and a tree that grows unlimited fruit, and also the strange power that if anybody climbs it, they can't come down until Gambling Hansel says it's okay for them to come down. So they're trapped in there. Eventually, he tricks Death into going up the tree. God and St. Peter find out about it. They make him let Death come down, and they take him to the afterlife where he beats Lucifer in a game of cards, and he wins all of Lucifer's devils. And then he uses those devils to break into heaven, but then when he's in heaven, he gambles and gets in trouble by God, who finally throws him out of heaven, and he falls to earth and shatters into all these pieces. And the pieces go into all of the gambling vagabonds who are living to this very day.
Oh, it's like a mythological explanation.
Yes.
For why people have gambling addictions?
Yes. I mean, but he is a full addict. Like, there's a part in the beginning when, his roommates, God and Peter, you don't have any food. Here, take some money, go buy some food with that. And he's like, okay, fine. And he takes it and he gambles it away right away. And then that's why they give him the dice and the cards to help him with his addiction. I don't know how they think that's going to work, but it's crazy.
Yeah. They have a lot of weird roommates in Brothers Grimm. Mm-hmm. One story that I thought about doing this month, we're not going to do it, but I read it, was The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage.
Yeah.
Which was about a mouse and a bird and a sausage who live together. And the sausage is the cook. It's a sentient sausage.
It's crazy.
And that story is just about stay in your lane and don't try to take other jobs or else things will get ruined. It wasn't interesting enough other than the fact there was a sausage cook living with a mouse and a bird.
It's truly bizarre. Similar again to this story is one called Godfather Death, where a kid's parents get Death to be their kid's godfather. And he does the same trick with the glass. But the way that he gets around it is by turning the bed around. So if Death is at the head of the bed, then if you spin the bed, then now he could put the water on him. Mm-hmm. Also, there's the story of Ivan Turbinka, which is pretty much The Soldier in Death, but it was written by a Romanian author who wrote it in the middle of the 19th century.
Okay.
So the story might actually have Romanian or Ukrainian origins. It's really hard to track down more details about it. I found in one of the annotations that in the original Russian, there's 3 versions of the story, but I can't find an English translation that has all 3 versions of those stories together as it was in the book.
I'm sure that the story probably even predates what we think of as modern Russia as well.
Yeah.
Russia's the biggest country in the world, but it wasn't always. There were the Goths, and Moscow was its own principality, and so it probably has origins in some of those earlier regions.
What do you think that the story is actually about?
I don't think it's about any one thing. Fairy tales often aren't, but to me it had a heavy theme about the Wheel of Fortune. In America, we tend to think of that as a game show, but throughout human history, the Wheel of Fortune has been this symbol of the fickle nature of fate. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're not.
Sure.
Most of these things are out of your control. And in this way, the fairy tale kind of picks up the theme from Slaughterhouse-Five, that a lot of these things are out of your control. It's good and bad, and you should probably focus on the good. The Wheel of Fortune was already cliche. Tacitus was complaining about it being overused in the year 70. So, it's been around, but it was really popularized by a book called The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius, which was written from around 520. Boethius was imprisoned and executed, but prior to that, his life had been going pretty well. It was treachery that did him in. The Ostrogothic king, Theodoric, threw him in jail. It was a surprise, and he had 1 year before he was going to be put to death. And in that year, he wrote this book about a conversation he has with a female personification of philosophy that he refers to as Lady Philosophy. And Lady Philosophy consoles Boethius by discussing the transitory nature of wealth and fame and power, the ultimate superiority of the mind, in that we can always use that's the one thing we can control is our perspective. She contends that happiness comes from within. Virtue is all that one really has because fortune is fickle. And I felt like there was a lot of that going on in this. Even though he became wealthy and powerful, his son still got sick.
Yeah.
But he was able to have good fortune when he was totally poor. So it just showed how that cycle works, and I think it had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think you really nailed it at the top, how he, through no fault of his own, ended up in a bad situation, and that gave him an empathy for other people. This is kind of the stuff that was in Slaughterhouse-Five, going back to Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yeah.
About how Americans see being poor as a failure, and you're stupid, and it's your fault that you're poor. If you worked harder, if you were smarter, you would get more. And it's like, no, man, sometimes, most of the time, bad stuff just happens. And I think that perspective is really in the story.
In that passage that Campbell Jr. had written in Slaughterhouse-Five, he says, other cultures all have stories of people who are poor but wise. And here's an example of one.
Yeah, there you go.
We didn't intentionally
No.
make that connection,
No,
but
no,
here
no.
it is. I want to thank Rachel Lackey for being an excellent reader on this first episode of the month.
She's great, and she's always a pleasure to listen to. And if you'd like to listen to more of her, go check out her podcast and mine, Rach Watches Star Trek.
Check it out. I also want to thank some of our very virtuous patrons. I'm going to start by thanking Victoria.
I'd like to thank Lucas.
Justin Bortnick, thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Eric Elftman.
Manny, thank you.
Penny Nicoles, thank you.
Mark Twinham Kauke, thank you.
Chris Dunnett, thank you so much.
Sir Snooze-a-lot, thanks so much for waking up and listening.
And Ronan Brennan, thank you.
Also, of course, we have to thank our stakers who make these free shows possible. I'm going to say them all at once. Here we go. Thank you. Bag of Weasels, Cryptocartographer, Alistair Brooks, Continental Breakfast, Shmail Khan, Christopher Rosser, It's a Ghost, Kip Barnes, John Morgan, Angelina Brown, Eric Esvalone, MD, Richard Wolf, and Ben A.
Yeah.
You are the czars of our hearts.
Oh, it's true.
And that's all we have for this week. For now, I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
I'm Chris Lackey, and you've been listening to Strange Studies of Strange Stories
at strangestudies.com.
Strange Studies of Strange Stories.